Hello to all our friends out there from the Financial Advisory Group. We just wanted to send along another video update to tell you how things are going here at the firm and our plans ahead, as well as give you our updated thoughts on where things stand in the economy, as well as the markets, which sometimes those can be two different things. First off, for the company, as we said on the last call, that we now have all seven of us here in the office, which is a great thing. It's so nice to have everybody back here in the office and be able to share ideas and see everybody on a daily basis. It continues that we continue to make those steps a little bit closer towards normal. As we move more towards normal, our plan is that we can actually see us opening the office, hopefully come sometime along maybe early June. Our thought is once all of us here at the office have had the chance to get vaccinated, that then will open up the doors. And if you feel comfortable coming in, great. If you feel more comfortable at the picnic table, that's fine. Or we can continue doing phone calls and Zooms, whatever works best for you. We'll keep you updated on that. But as of now, it looks like that should be around early June. Isn't it great to actually be able to talk about all of us here in the office possibly being vaccinated within a month or two? Think about where we were even 3 months ago and no one was vaccinated. Nobody in this country, basically. And now 3 months later, we can talk about if people want a vaccination, they can get one. It's a great place to be. Now, as we look forward and talk about the economy for a little bit, vaccinations are obviously tied to how the economy is doing. And it's great news as vaccinations are up. And it looks like we're again heading a little bit closer back towards normal. Anecdotally, you can see it. There's more traffic everywhere. If you drive by the mall, the parking lots are crowded again. Restaurants are backed up. And if you combine a couple things together, our economic view really hasn't changed that much. That most of us here in this country, and not only here, but also around the world, have a high amount of pent up demand and desire to go out and do things. That's certainly true from every client that we talk with today. But I think one thing that we want to point out is that also there's a high amount of cash on the sidelines that will allow us to get back to normal. This chart here shows the amount of elevated savings compared to where things were over the last 10 to 20 years. The red dot shows you where accumulated cash is today. The blue shows you where it was on average over the last 20 years. Well, you can see in every country listed on this chart, and you can see the US here in about the middle, cash savings levels are at much higher levels than they've ever been in our country's history. So you combine this pent-up desire to do things along with the excess cash. Once people feel comfortable, and I think that word's important, once we're comfortable, you could see this market really this economy really get going. And that's why when we look out economically, this next 12 to 24 months could be a pretty nice time. You hear some people comparing this possibility to even something like the Roaring '20s again. It's pretty interesting because if you look at what happened prior to the Roaring '20s, it was the Spanish flu of the late 1918, 1919 timeframe. So similar to that, as we all start opening the doors and getting over this COVID, you could see something like that again, where we all have this excitement to get out and spend. So again, the stage is set for a very good economy when we look forward over this next 12 to 24 months. In fact, you might see economic growth of 6, 7, 8%. We haven't seen numbers like that in 10, 20, 30 years in this country. So economically, it's great. Then what about for the markets, right? When we look at the markets, one thing we want to point out is remember that the market looks forward, right? So the reason the market is doing so well today isn't because April has been great. The market's doing well today because it assumes 6 months from now, 12 months from now, everything that I just said will happen, right? It assumes things are going to get better. Think back to last year. Last year, the economy actually had a horrible year, yet the market had a very good year. This year could be something a little bit different, right? Where this year we could have a great economic year, a year of the best economic year, like we just said, for 30 years, yet the market just might end up being okay. Because remember, the market looks forward. So the market already is high because it assumed things would get better and continues to assume they will get better. The hard part is, as we move along, expectations get higher, right? I've used this example with clients before that I use my boys a lot and talk to them about grades in school, right? So if you have a child who gets C's in school, they bring home a B, you had lower expectations. All of a sudden that B makes you feel very good. You're proud of them, right? They've raised things, they've done better. Well, think about it. About a year ago, any company that just stayed in business was great, right? We patted them on the back. We thought that was excellent. What if you have a child who gets A's all the time, right? That expectation level is really high. They bring home a B, and it's, what are you doing? How'd you get a B, right? Well, think about where we are today. Today, you've had earnings come off, and earnings have been phenomenal. Yet the market isn't really responding as much as it normally would. Because a year ago, we thought, okay, you're a C student, you got a B, we're happy for you. Today, we're now expecting A's from all of these companies, right? So as expectations get higher, it may be harder for this market to continue to go up at the pace we've seen recently. Although if you look at those earnings, and I'll bring this chart up here, you can see that earnings have been phenomenal, right? This looks at the company's earnings reports, and earnings are basically like a company's report card. And 79% of companies in this first quarter are beating what their revenue estimates were to be. 86% of them are beating what their earnings estimates were to be. So companies are doing phenomenal, but just remember those expectations have been raised a little bit more. So it may be harder to get this market to move a little bit more forward. Another thing that we tend to look at this time is that we have all this lists of worries that continue to pile up, right? And you think about this last 12 months, and we've talked about it a lot. We've had a lot to worry about, right? We've talked about it, that from going back a year ago to COVID, to then an election that we went through that was maybe crazier than one we've seen in a long time. You add on top of that the insurrection. You add on top of that now a new administration. And then what about tax hikes? What about inflation coming along? And don't forget about those murder hornets, right? We always have something to worry about. Well, as we talked about in the last call, right, the market lives on a totally different planet than we do. My view of today is the market's looking down at us and saying, man, you guys worry about way too much stuff, right? Let's take taxes as an example. True, we would agree that both taxes and inflation are probably going to head up over the next 1, 2, 3, 5 years, right? Over this next 5-year time frame. Is that something to worry about? Sure. None of us want to pay more taxes. But if you take it into historical perspective, you can see where we are from a tax rate perspective today, that from a historical perspective, tax rates are actually relatively low. So it would make sense over time for tax rates to have to move forward. Not that we want them to, but that it makes sense that over time they will have to move forward. Well, the question can be, well, doesn't higher tax rates stop the market from doing well? Well, as you can see, tax rates have been much higher in the 50s and 60s. As we look at the market over the last 90 years and zoom out, it certainly looks that the market doesn't care too much about higher taxes, right? The market has done phenomenal over the last 90 years, even through higher taxes and higher inflation. So sure, are there things to worry about? There always will be things to worry about. But our view is we really have to focus in on the right things and not get so caught up in the new thing, right? It's enjoy what's going on today. Appreciate the fact that this economy is in better shape than it was a year ago. Vaccinations are up, and that companies are in great shape. There will always be things to worry about. All these things that we've talked about in this last 100 days, it's interesting when we think about inflation and we think about taxes. We said the market looks forward. The market is assuming inflation is going to be higher. The market's assuming taxes are going to be higher. Yet as we take a look in the first 100 days under Biden's administration, the market's up 9%, which would be in the top 4 or 5 of all administrations in their first 100 days. Again, as we've said, is that due to Biden? Not necessarily, right? It's due to companies making phenomenal business decisions, interest rates being low, and economies reopen again. So we need to get away from blaming or assigning credit to administrations and more realize that companies are in great shape. The Federal Reserve has interest rates low. The average person in this country has more cash on hand than they had a year ago. And that's what will drive this market going forward. When we look short term, though, just like that balloon analogy that we've used in the past, this chart's a little bit over the top, but what it shows on the orange line is this market since 2020. Right? And the green line is the market in 2009 to 2010. What you see is they're tracking very similarly. So the point we'd make short term, we think the balloon may need to let some air out, right? But that's healthy. That's okay. So short term, we'd say, yeah, it may be time to let some air out. It may be time for that quote unquote correction. That's okay. That's healthy. But we really think once that's in place, as you saw happen in 2009, 2010, that then things will continue to move higher as companies continue to find ways to be more and more profitable. So as we look forward, what we look at this is our brains are wired to get hurt a lot more from loss than pleasure that we get from gain. We remember losses a lot more than we remember gains. In fact, some studies suggest that in order to make up for the loss of $1, you have to win 10. That's what it takes to offset that lost memory in our brain. So we get it, right? We always are worried. We always want to think about things. But I think we'll steal a quote from FDR here and say, as of now, the only thing that we have to fear is fear itself, right? We'll always have things to worry about. Taxes will get higher. Inflation will go higher, but that's okay. That's happened before. And again, we'll do our best to stay on top of things. For now, look back and appreciate where we are, right? More people vaccinated today than we ever thought would be possible in sitting here in April. And compared to the rest of the world, we certainly have issues, but we go back to PIMCO's old saying, the US continues to be the cleanest, dirty shirt in the closet. And as long as that continues, the US will be a place that will continue to thrive economically, and we should be able to look out for a good economy in the 1 to 2, 3 years ahead. Thanks again. We hope you all have a great rest of spring, and we hope these cold snaps are over. We'll talk to you soon, and more importantly, we hope to see you soon. Stay healthy.